Yo, what is going on, y'all? It's your boy, it's your host, Calvin Domingo, aka Steezy A. Smith. I know it's been way too long. Sorry, give me just a second. My bad, y'all. But as I was saying though, man, it has been way too long since the last time. Not only did I hop on a live stream, but just put out any sort of content on YouTube that wasn't a YouTube short. Now I don't know if you guys can tell, but I've gotten very tan. I've gone pretty dark over the last month and a half. And as I've told some of you guys on social media, I mean, I've been on vacations. I've been camping. I've been playing football for the 7-on-7 league. I've had practices. I've had games. I've been hiking, camping, and so many things. This summer has been not just hectic, but it's been very relaxing. It's been full of a bunch of peace and just a much needed amount of rest. And so I just want to apologize to all you guys out there that tune into our content on a regular basis. I know, like I said, it has been a while. I think our last live stream was actually back in May, and then our last upload that wasn't a short was the beginning of July. And so we pretty much gone almost, what is it, a month and a half or 2 months now without any real content on this channel. But because, we are in the thick of things as far as the NFL season goes, preseason is winding down. We are heading towards the regular season. Then you guys can expect a whole bunch more content, live streams, coverage of Seahawk games, and practices and whatnot. And you can also expect a whole bunch of YouTube shorts. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but that's definitely something that I've tried to kind of hitch my wagon on and something that I'm really trying to provide for you guys as well. But before we really get into the thick of things, I just want to address some of you guys in the comments. It's been far too long. So Duran Everest in the chat, what's going on, bro? Thank you so much for tuning in. He says, I want Drew Locke. I also want Drew Locke. Tyler Parcher in the building. Hey, brother, what's going on, Tyler? I'm so sorry, but I wasn't able to get you on today. Just because this is my first time back in a while, I kind of wanted to handle things myself and really just kind of get back into the thick of things. But definitely on a future show, I'll have you other guests hopping on and whatnot. We got Serve in the building. Yes, Geno Smith is like my pinky toe, absolutely useless. Oh my gosh, I don't know if I'd go that far. I like to think I'm a little bit nicer than that. But Serve really, handling. Oh my goodness, really just serving it. Sheesh. Not Chief in the building. My boy Steezy making it live. Yes, sir. Go Hawks. Not Chief, man. My guy. I hope you've been well. It has been a while, but I know you're over there in Atlanta. So what is it? It's like 10 o'clock over there. Bro, thanks for tuning in as always. But I really appreciate it. My guy Syjan, what up, 12? It's been far too long, Syjan. I know I kind of went ghost on Twitter as on YouTube, but hey, I'm back. I'm back. Big Play Slay. Yo, what's up, bro? Thanks for tuning in. Tyler Parcher in the building. Yo. What's your intro music? Oh, that's right. Tyler. You know what? Just because you said that, let's run it.
Here comes the, y'all don't really want it like, yeah. Here comes the.
Yeah, Devin. Hey, we were just chopping it up on Twitter. Yo, Steezy, thank you so much for tuning in. Miss you, big dog. Big Play Slay. What's good, Steezy? What's good, Big Play Slay? Joe B. It really doesn't, but I just don't like Geno. We have seen enough of him and he sucks. Wow. I'm seeing all this negative reception about Geno. Sheesh. Grug, what up, Steezy? Grug in the building. Yo. Tyler, how are you, man? Hey, like I said at the top of the show, man, I've been great. I've been well, been blessed by the best. I needed some time away from the game, and now that I'm back, I'm ready to kind of kick things off and really get right back into the thick of things. I know I keep saying that, but I mean that. I promise. And Tyler's also asking, can we do Seahawk reactions? Yes, we will. And then, forgive me if I'm saying this wrong, but is it Anastasia Pauling? Hello? And go Hawks. Go Hawks, baby. Go Hawks. And it's Sergeant K. Dope music intro, Steezy. Yeah, it's the one that we've been using for pretty much all of our Seahawk and football videos /content/episodes. But we are looking to kind of remake the channel and the brand just a little bit. And so definitely stay tuned for that. Not Chief. Yes, sir. It's 10 over here in Georgia. Been going through it mentally for a minute, man. But I've been praying to God sophomore year right now. Hey, I'll be praying for you too, bro. I hope everything's been well. And look, you can always feel free to message me, bro, whether that's on Instagram, Snapchat, Facebook. Feel free to message me, bro. If you ever need someone to talk to, I'm right here for you. And then Anastasia, yeah, you got it right. Well, Anastasia, thank you for tuning in. I think your name is very unique, and I'm excited to talk Seahawks with you guys. Tyler, tomorrow I'm going to BWW to watch the Mariners National game with my bro and my cousin. That sounds very exciting, Tyler. All right, y'all. So let's just get right to it, y'all. So as we all know, Seahawks are currently 0-2 in the preseason. They will be playing the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas this coming weekend. That'll be very exciting. I don't know if any of you guys had a chance to actually catch up with me. I pulled up to a couple of Seahawks training camp sessions, and man, there are a lot of bright spots. There are a lot of bright spots on this team. I think that the foundation is definitely there. There's a young nucleus in place, but there are definitely going to be a lot of growing pains. I mean, I'm pretty sure, as you guys are well aware, the Seahawks, it's been kind of painful, to watch this football team this preseason. Now, I know things can get a little blown out of proportion, or I know things can get blown out of proportion, especially as it pertains to preseason games. I mean, you guys remember last year, Jamar Chase and all those drops, right, in training camp and preseason. But look what we ended up doing. Now, I know that might have been extreme. I don't expect Seattle to pull a Jamar Chase and make the playoffs and, come a step away from winning the Super Bowl. But I'm really just bringing that up to kind of show and to kind of illustrate that things can get overblown, in the preseason. And I know that things aren't really looking up right now for the Seattle Seahawks, especially as it pertains to the quarterback play. But like I said, there's a young nucleus, there's a foundation in place, and there's a lot of positives to take from that. And so I kind of want to go to this little quote that I have over here. When you have two quarterbacks, it means that you don't have one. And going back to the title of this live stream, does it actually matter who starts for the Seattle Seahawks? In my personal opinion, no, it really doesn't. Drew Locke, Geno Smith, heck, Jacob Eason, for crying out loud. I don't think it matters. Look, y'all, I've been seeing a lot of Seahawks fans panicking and talking about how the Seahawks should trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. Even non-Seahawks fans. A lot of people out there that aren't Seahawks fans, a lot of people out there that don't root for the Seahawks, but people that, watch the NFL or pay attention to the NFL and watch football, they want to see the Seattle Seahawks get a quarterback. But for me, it's like, okay, Jimmy Garoppolo, he's an above average quarterback. Right. I think that he's a starting quarterback. I don't think that he's a franchise quarterback, but you bring in a Jimmy Garoppolo, not only is that an intra-division trade, but because it is an intra-division trade and you're trading a quarterback that is, like I said, starting caliber in the NFL, the Niners are probably going to try to get more out of Seattle than they would out of any other team. And they know that Seattle needs a quarterback. And so instead of another team trading, let's say, a third-round pick or a fourth-round pick, Seattle probably have to give up a second. And if you're the Seattle Seahawks, yes, that enables you to win more games, this season than you would with a Geno Smith or a Drew Lock at quarterback. But for what? Is it even guaranteed that a Jimmy Garoppolo-led Seahawks football team could go all the way to the playoffs and make it out of the first round? I don't think so. I know that the NFC is a lot weaker than it has been in years past. The NFC this year is very top-heavy, and who knows? Other teams might be able to come along. I actually have a couple of dark horses that reside in the NFC, but even with the Jimmy Garoppolo, does that guarantee a playoff appearance? Not necessarily, but what it does do is that it puts you in the middle of the pack. It puts you in purgatory. And what I mean by that is you're a team that is not good enough to make the playoffs, but you're not bad enough to get like a top 10 draft pick. And I know fans or folks out there might be looking at me and saying that, yo, Pete Carroll is one of the oldest coaches in football. He's 70+ years old. Why would he want another year essentially wasted by not making the playoffs, by winning such a minuscule amount of games? Well, like I said before, sometimes you got to take a step backward to take two steps or to move or to take two steps forward again. And I feel like with the Seattle Seahawks, I mean, you just gave up one of the very best, not just quarterbacks, but one of the very best players in franchise history in Russell Wilson when you traded him to the Denver Broncos a couple of months ago. What did you expect? Weren't the expectations for the Seattle Seahawks this season, weren't they minimal? Nobody was expecting this team to make the playoffs. Nobody was expecting this team to make any noise. Nobody was expecting this team to win X amount of games. You just lost Russell Wilson, a top 6, top 7ish quarterback in all the National Football League. So you lose a guy like that. We see what we've seen in the preseason, especially as it pertains to the quarterback position and the quarterback battle between Drew Locke and Geno Smith. And now all of a sudden everybody's panicking. Oh, let's trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. Or, oh, we're in for a long season. This was expected. That's why, and again, I'm going to go back to the title. Does it actually matter who starts for the Seahawks? No, either way, it's whether it's Geno Smith, whether it's Drew Locke, whether it's a Jimmy Garoppolo, I don't see any of those guys taking this team to the playoffs. But like I was saying earlier, this team has the foundation. This team does have a young nucleus with which to build around. And offensive line has seemingly been addressed. I'm not saying that it's perfect. I'm not saying that it's top 10. I'm not saying that it's in the upper half of the league as far as where they rank. But the offensive line's gotten a lot better, and there's a lot of pieces out there over there to work with. Obviously, the receiving core headlined by DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. You got Freddie Swain, D. Eskridge. You got Bo Melton making noise. You got the tight end group, I think, which is solidified. On defense, you have talent at all three levels of the defense. I think the defensive line is absolutely loaded. It's full of depth. I think that the linebacking core might be some question marks as far as depth, as far as the readiness of a Cody Barton. But I do like what we have in that position group. Obviously, headlined by Jordan Brooks, who was second in the NFL in tackles last year with 180 plus. You look at the secondary. Yes, there are some question marks, especially at cornerback. But Tariq Woolen. I mean, my God, man. I'm actually gonna try to have him on here for an interview, so stay tuned for that, y'all. Kobe Bryant's looked absolutely phenomenal. Obviously, there's been some growing pains with those two guys, but Artie Burns, he has experience playing for Sean Desai. We have a Trey Brown who performed admirably last season in limited action before getting injured. Sidney Jones, who had arguably the best season of his career down the stretch for the Seahawks. And so there's a lot of depth. Justin Coleman, I know he hasn't looked phenomenal. He hasn't looked magnificent in preseason action, but he has experience playing, for the Seahawks. He loves playing with those guys. He loves the city of Seattle. Look, there's pieces to work with. Obviously, I think Seattle still has the best safety duo, if not a top 3 safety duo, in Jamal Adams and Quandre Diggs. And so let's say Seattle unintentionally tanks this year, and let's say they get a top 10 pick. I mean, you still have trade ammunition, right? You're going to have 2 first-round picks next year. You're going to have 2 second-round picks next year. And if you don't end up getting a top 5 pick, if you don't end up getting a top 7 pick, but you have a pick like around 8, 9, 10, and you still have that glaring hole at quarterback, then you could use some of that trade ammo that you accumulated from that trade where you traded Russell Wilson and use that to kind of package those two together and move up to get a quarterback. And so, again, I'm going to go back to this title. Does it actually matter? No. Regardless, Seattle isn't going to make the playoffs. This is going to be, I guess you could kind of consider it a gap year, if you will. Maybe that isn't the best way to kind of quantify what the season is going to be, but if you're willing to kind of go through the growing pains, if you're willing to let your young players shine and really get all those valuable snaps and playing time throughout the course of the season, you could figure out quarterback next year. And then when you get your quarterback in next year's draft, or if you end up trading for a quarterback that miraculously is available, on the open market, then you continue to build around, said quarterback next year. And although Pete Carroll and John Schneider are on record saying that this isn't a rebuild, it's more so a reload, then I think that it wouldn't be such a terrible idea for Seattle to kind of sit this year out, no matter who's at quarterback, and really just, and I hate to use this word, but I guess bottom out, right? But with the Geno Smith, and I know a lot of people have kind of pointed this out, he's a boring bad. And if Drew Locke is bad, well, then he's a fun bad, because there's still, some mystique, I feel like, about his game. I think he's more athletic than a Geno Smith. I think he has a bigger arm than a Geno Smith. And I think his game caters to the strengths of our primary pass catchers, and that's DK Metcalf. That's Tyler Lockett. Those guys exceed and they excel in the deep passing game. Drew Locke, for all of his warts, has a golden arm, has a rocket of an arm. He can throw it deep. And although he might not be nearly as accurate as you would like, he can sling it deep. And so I'm going to flip this question to you guys, and definitely be sure to, flood the comments and let your opinions be heard. But who do you want to see start at quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks? I know that this question has been talked about ad nauseum, but I'm curious to see, especially with what we've witnessed in the preseason so far. But before I move on to the next topic / question, or before I address the next question, let me go back to the comments and let's see what you guys are talking about over here. So we got Najee, Drew Lock, and the surprises. Just watch. Hey, bro, look, and I know this was against backups, right? But Drew Lock in week 1, or at least in the preseason week 1, I thought he performed admirably. Let's go back and check the stats real quick. But he was 11 for 15, completed 70.3% of his passes for 102 passing yards and 2 touchdowns, had a 131.1 quarterback rating, and he just looked very comfortable. It looked like he knew what he was doing. I know that for the majority of training camp, Geno Smith was getting first team reps, but Drew Lock was most definitely holding his own. And I know that they were against backups and second teamers and whatnot, but he definitely did his thing. He definitely did his Dougie. So, yeah, I wouldn't be surprised. I would not be surprised. Syjan says Drew week 1. Right. It's not just Russell Wilson's revenge game. This is also Drew Lock's revenge game. Let's not forget that, y'all. Tyler, I want that song. Can you send me the link? Remind me after this. And this is Anastasia. I at least want them to make it competitive. Don't make it look like you're trying to lose. Oh, of course. I think with any PKO-led football team, I mean, and I've been on record saying this on other shows and other podcasts and whatnot, but Pete Carroll, and this includes 2 years without Russell Wilson, by the way, has never had, and this is while coaching the Seahawks, he's never had a season in which he won less than 7 games. And again, that includes 2 seasons without Russell Wilson. And so I'm not saying that Seattle's going to go out here and win 7 games, although when I did make my official record predictions a couple of months ago, I did say 7-10. I might have a different prediction now, so definitely be sure to stay tuned to get that out of me. But I just think that with the way that Seattle's going to play this year, they're just going to be feisty. They're going to win with running the football. They're going to win with defense. And hopefully once they clean things up special teams wise and tackling wise and special teams, because I know Jason Myers did miss that 47 yarder against the Bears in the preseason week 2 game. And so special teams definitely have a couple of things to clean up. But on the bright side of things, I mean, Michael Dixon, I think he's probably the best punter in football. I mean, feel free to kind of let me know if I'm tripping in the comments, but I think Michael Dixon, so far, he might just be Seattle's most valuable player in the preseason. As crazy as that sounds, and I know that, granted, guys like DK, Tyler Lockett have barely really played. That sounds crazy, right? But, yo, at least we have that going. At least they have that going for them, right? Serve. Yo, Steezy, tell Geno Smith to find a new career. Oh, man. Hey, bro. Eventually Geno Smith might be on a show himself, and so I want to refrain from any sort of comments like that. I don't want to get off, or I don't want to get off on the wrong foot, with the Geno Smith. And so they'll make the playoffs. Wow, my brother Side, nice to see you on against these. I know it's been far too long. Drew, okay, I'm with you, Anastasia. I'm with you. Geno for 2 games, and then Drew. So, now, Chief, let me ask you, do you think that Geno Smith gives us a better chance of beating the Broncos? Is that what you're trying to imply? Zuko, what up, Steezy? What up, Zuko? My God, man, thanks for being on. Anastasia, who do you think the RB1 is going to be? I think for as long as he's healthy, it's got to be Rashad Penny. I mean, with the way that he looked last year, the final 5 to 6 games of the season, he was the best running back in football, better than Jonathan Taylor. He had 200 plus yards, or he had over 200 yards more than Jonathan Taylor did in that same stretch. And so basically that tells me that he is capable of a lot more than I think what we all expect. Or I think he's a lot more capable of what we've seen throughout the course of his career. Obviously, injuries have kind of sapped him in that regard, but yo, I know he's not going to have the threat of Russell Wilson at quarterback, but he was once upon a time one of the best running backs in all of college football. He was over there doing his Dougie at San Diego State. And so for as long as he's healthy, and I think with the offensive line having improved to where it is now, I think that it should be Rashad Penny. But obviously, eventually, and only because he's on a 1-year deal and because he hasn't been able to consistently stay healthy throughout the course of his career, I think Ken Walker will eventually take over. And I don't know if you guys have seen this, but when I talked about Ken Walker about a month ago or a month and a half ago, I think he could very well be the best running back in Seattle since Beast Mode. I'm not saying that he's better than Beast Mode. I'm not comparing him to Beast Mode, but I think that he has, the talent and the motivation and the desire to be better than the Chris Carsons of the world, the Thomas Rawls, the Rashad Pennies, the guys that have played running back after Beast Mode. He's just that talented. I mean, people forget he was a Heisman finalist last year and he was a running back. Like, come on, y'all, from Michigan State? That came out of nowhere. And so I think right now, Anastasia, to answer your question, is Rashad Penny, health permitting, but then Ken Walker, I wouldn't be surprised if he takes over the job because, again, Rashad Penny, and I'm not counting on any injuries, but it just almost seems like it's bound to happen, right? And especially with the way that running backs tend to get banged up, and that's why we start to see a lot more committees. I just think that inevitably Ken Walker will take over, but for now, expect Rashad Penny to be the RB1. Not cheap. Geno starts 2 games, and if he does bad, then we put in Drew. Okay. Sajin need a new kicker. It's tough right now. I just don't even know if there's really any alternatives better than a Jason Myers, just because if we were going to acquire a guy that was better than Jason Myers, it probably would have been either during the draft or would have been during the onset of free agency. And so right now, I just don't really feel like Seattle has any other options. They might just be stuck with the Jason Myers. But we'll see what happens there. I think if anything, if he continues his struggles for this coming season, this is probably going to be his last year in Seattle. Zuko is curious, just got here, expectations on our pass rush. Look, I think Boy and Mafe, and I talked about him. I broke him down in one of our episodes from probably like 2 months ago. I think he has all the tools. I mean, he obviously has to clean up a couple of things. He obviously has to add, I feel like, a counter. He has to have more experience. He has to add a little bit more weight. But I think our pass rush is going to be devastating. Like I talked about, our defensive line, we have so much as far as depth, right? We have so many guys, and let me run through some of the options real quick. But on the offensive line or on the defensive line, I mean, and you acquired him from Seattle or from Denver in that trade when you traded away Russell Wilson, Shelby Harris, who's long been one of the more underrated defensive linemen in the league. Obviously, Seattle re-signed, and Al Woods. Poona Ford is still there clogging things up. In the middle, Brian Monet, who I think is just absolutely sensational as a run stuffer. Quentin Jefferson is reuniting. LJ Collier. Now, I'm not sure if he makes the final roster, but he also has positional versatility alongside that defensive line. There's just so many bodies that you could rotate. And so I think that as far as our pass rush goes, I definitely feel like I'm not going to go out here and say that they're going to be above average. I'm not going to go out here and say that, they're going to put up 40-plus sacks, but they're not going to be in the bottom half of the league. I think that Seattle could be in the middle of the pack. I mean, you have a Darrell Taylor, who I think is set to explode. You have an Ochino Owusu, who played with the torn labrum last year, and yet he still finished in the top 20 as far as pressure percentage, ahead of guys like Von Miller. And so there's a lot of hope in the pass rush. I think will be better, or the Seahawks pass rush will be better down the line. But I think we can expect them to kind of be in the middle of the pack for this coming season. Grug, our team will look good overall, but our holes will be defiant. I see a 6-11 record. Okay, I think that's fair. I think that's fair. Hey, my guy Justin in the building. What's going on, bro? So he said, if you think they win 7 games now, do you think if we acquire a different quarterback, they will make the playoffs? So I don't know if you heard this from earlier, but I actually talked about how I feel like I don't think the Seahawks will win 7 games anymore. I do think that they'll win more than 5, right? But I just think that with the Pete Carroll, I mean, he's too good of a coach, at least maybe not in the X's and O's side of things, but because of how he's able to rally, because he's still a player's coach, because, the players still respect him and whatnot. Look, it's the NFL, man. It's any given Sunday. The more talented team or the most talented team isn't always going to win on a given basis, on a weekly basis. You know what I mean? We've seen talent division teams in the past, a la the 2019 Miami Dolphins. You guys remember that team, right? And so I'm kind of blanking. Brian Flores was the head coach of that team. And that team was arguably the most talent efficient team in all of the NFL, in NFL history. But then that team somehow miraculously won 5 games. They went 5-11 that season. And so I think that would be a very apt comparison. I think that this Seattle team has a lot more talent than that Miami Dolphins team. But that team was just getting blown out left and right. I don't know if you guys remember, but they were playing the Cowboys and the Ravens. That was Lamar Jackson's kind of coming out party. I think he had 5 touchdowns in that game, but they were losing 50-3 or like 40-0. That team was just absolutely awful. But well-coached teams, especially in the NFL. And Seattle, look, they're not as talent efficient as people think. I think at quarterback, obviously, but can you really name any of the positions in which Seattle is just absolutely terrible at? I truly can't. And I'm doing my best to take away all biases and to kind of remove that homer in me, if I have any, because I'd like to think that I don't, right? But I think that with the Seahawks, when I'm scouring through the depth chart and the roster, outside of depth at linebacker and outside of the question marks, in the secondary, especially the cornerback positions, can you look at a single position in Seattle and say to yourself, this team is absolutely weak in that position group or at this position? And I'm going to wait. If any of you guys in the comments have anything different to say or to add, let me know. But I just, when I look at this team outside of quarterback, I don't see a glaring need anywhere. Maybe kicker if Jason Myers continues to struggle. But like I said at the top of the show, I think that there's foundational pieces. I think that there's definitely a nucleus with which to work with. And so, you had a quarterback like a Jimmy G. Maybe they push for the playoffs, but like I said, I think my dark horses in the NFC, I got the New Orleans Saints, I got the Philadelphia Eagles, I like the Minnesota Vikings, I like, if they're able to stay healthy, the Detroit Lions, because a lot of things would have to break right for them. But there are a lot of dark horses in the NFC, and we haven't even talked about obviously the top of the cream of the crop, right? And we're talking about the Buccaneers, we're talking about the Rams, we're talking about the Packers. I think the Eagles win the division. The Cowboys are still going to be in the picture. The Niners obviously still going to be in the picture. The Cardinals, they'll be in the picture. And so even if Seattle were to acquire Jimmy Garoppolo, let's say you think Seattle wins 5 or 6 games without Jimmy G. They trade for Jimmy G, and now let's say they win 8 games, maybe 9 games. I don't think that's enough. I truly don't, especially when you look at the NFC West. The NFC West is going to be matched up against the AFC West. And so that includes games against the Chiefs. That includes games against the Chargers, against the Broncos, against the Raiders. I mean, I honestly, truly believe that all 4 teams in the AFC West could potentially make the playoffs. As crazy and as heinous as that sounds, I truly believe in what I'm saying. I say what I mean, and I mean what I say. And so I think that, Justin, to make a long answer short, I'm still gonna say no. I think, again, and like I said at the top of the show, they do enough to push themselves into NFL purgatory, which is where you're not good enough to make the playoffs, but then you're not bad enough to land a high enough draft pick. Moving on to the next, Zuko Sama. I feel like Alton Robinson and Mafe flashed the most so far in the preseason. Bing, bing, bing. Right. And when I was at training camp, I was able to chop it up with Alton Robinson just a little bit. He's a real cool dude. He loves the kids, and the kids love him. And so I think that he kind of fell out of favor last season. And he spent, I don't know why, a lot more time on the bench than people would have wanted. And I just think that with what we've seen from him so far, training camp, preseason, yes, he's most definitely going to be a guy that's going to step up, and that's going to be pivotal if Seattle's pass rush is going to improve. I talked about Darrell Taylor. I talked about Boye Mafe. I talked about some of the other guys on the defensive line, Uchenna and Wosu. But yeah, Alton Robinson, definitely expected to make some noise. We can't forget about him, so definitely be sure to keep note of Alton Robinson. Sidens is asking thoughts on our corners. I dove into this just briefly earlier, but I think that with the cornerback situation, it's not as bad as a lot of people are making out to be. I mean, Tariq Woolen, I know that we saw some of those struggles in the first preseason game against the Steelers, but I thought that he bounced back admirably against the Bears. I mean, he was absolutely sensational, just phenomenal, just shutting stuff down. I mean, talk about bouncing back, right? I think in the long run, I mean, we could see an absolute star at cornerback, Kobe Bryant. I mean, we knew that coming into the NFL, he was going to have a high floor. He showed that so far. I mean, his hands, it just seems like it's always on a football. He's just always going to be in the area. He's not going to get burnt. He has the IQ. You're not going to be able to just, pull something on him where he just finds himself confused or things of that nature. But I think with the Kobe Bryant, he looks like a seasoned vet already. Artie Burns, he has experience playing for or under Sean Desai. Trey Brown, who I thought in limited action last year was absolutely just great. He's definitely a hard hitter. He's a dog, definitely a guy or a voice that is much needed in that Seattle locker room. So I think the cornerback situation is a lot better than people would like to give him credit for. Sidney Jones, who I also talked about. I mean, he had the best season, the best stretch of his career down the stretch last year. And he's talked about, in this past offseason, he talked about how, this Seattle defense is going to be obviously more downhill. It's going to be more aggressive. There's going to be a little bit more in terms of man coverage. He excelled, in the scheme such as that, especially at UW. And so I'm curious to see how he performs in the coming season. But yeah, I'm going to say it again. I think that the cornerback situation is a little bit more stable than people realize. Personally, who do you want to start at quarterback, Steezy? We're going to touch on this a lot more a little bit later, but just to kind of answer that question briefly, I'm going to say Drew Locke. I just think that, look, both these guys aren't going to be very good for us. We're not going to be winning very many games, regardless of if it's Geno Smith or Drew Locke at quarterback. And so it's like, why not take the guy that has more potential? Why not take the guy that has a little bit more intrigue, has more mystique, a guy that I feel like could actually unlock the strengths of our primary pass catchers? Again, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, they excel in the deep passing game. Drew Locke, what does he have over a Geno Smith? What are one of the few things he has over a Geno Smith? He has a golden arm. He has a rocket of an arm, and it might not be the most accurate, but again, he could throw the ball deep. And so I think that with the Drew Locke, I'd rather go with him. And again, it's not just the Russell Wilson revenge game in week 1. It's a Drew Locke revenge game as well. So let's not forget that, folks. Reflect the Sun, Al Woods will help, but our middle is soft, right? Man, I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't go that far. I wouldn't say that they're soft, just because we haven't seen extensive action from a lot of these guys. But I definitely think that coming to regular season, we'll have more clarity on that front. I definitely feel like Al Woods is just so underrated, though. He's one of the better defensive tackles, interior linemen in the league, and nobody ever talks about him. And I get it, it's Seattle, and Seattle isn't expected to be good, but I mean, I think is underrated as far as pushing the pocket. In terms of interior pressure, obviously we all know that he can stuff the run. He clogs up the middle. So I don't think that with him in the middle, that Seattle's middle is going to be soft. Maybe if you remove a couple of those softs and worst case scenario, it ends up being soft, but not soft, if that makes sense. Sajin, I told the Cowboys fans last week that the Eagles would take the division. Yup, they pissed on. Oh, I believe it. Obviously, that's not what they want to hear, but I'm not here for what y'all want to hear. I'm here for what y'all need to hear. You know what I mean? ECG, what's going on, y'all? What up, little bro? What's going on, big bro? This my man's right here at East Coast Grid Iron. Real quick, you guys, if you are tuned in, please show my guys some love, man. Be sure to subscribe, follow him on all social media platforms. I did make an appearance on his show a couple of months ago. He's also a Seahawks fan, although he lives and resides over there in Philadelphia. I promise you, he's not an Eagles fan. He's a Seahawks fan. And he does cover the NFL, covers pretty much every team, not just the Seahawks. And so for awesome and for great football content, he knows what he's talking about too, for sure. So be sure, everybody out there, if you're tuned in, be sure to subscribe to and follow my mans at the East Coast Gridiron. He said, I told y'all about Drew. Well, he could tell y'all more about Drew in one of his, I think he dropped this a couple of months ago, but he talked about how Drew could potentially not be the next Drew Brees, but he could take the path that Drew Brees took after he left the Chargers and before he became the starting quarterback for the New Orleans Saints. So please be sure to check out at East Coast Gridiron on YouTube. Now, we'll get back to y'all in the comments, but I wanted to address some of the questions just because when I did promote this live show, I talked about how on Twitter and on Instagram, on Snapchat, how I wanted you guys to drop your questions so that we can answer them live. And so I hope that for those of you guys that dropped questions on Twitter, on Instagram, I will give you guys a shout out on here. I hope you guys are tuned in just because, I'm going to be answering your questions. But obviously, if you're not tuned in right now, you can always tune in later. So either way, your questions will be answered regardless. Let me see, y'all. Okay. So this is on Instagram, and his at is the Seahawk coverage on Instagram. Shout out to at the Seahawk coverage, by the way. But he or she's asking, which veteran players do you think won't make the roster? And they brought up Justin Coleman, Marquis Blair, Marquis Goodwin, LJ Collier. I think out of these guys, and then if we're examining and looking at some of the other veterans on the roster, I think Justin Coleman should be, I'm not going to say he's a lock, but I would like to see him on the roster just because Seattle's cornerback room, I think, lacks experience and they lack veteran leadership. He's a guy that's been there, done that in that system. Maybe it's not the exact same system, but he's been there, done that in that locker room with the head coach, with some of the guys in the front office. I think while he's not a lock, I definitely feel like he should and he will be on the roster. Marquis Blair, I mean, he's had a hard time staying healthy, but I think that the talent is still there. And so I think that he's not a lock, but I definitely do feel like he should be on a roster. He can cover a multitude and a variety of roles on that defense, whether you want him, as a backup safety, whether you want him, as your nickel back, whether you want him as your dime back, or whether you want him, in the box as a glorified linebacker. He fills a lot of roles, and that positional versatility, I think, is going to be important for this defense moving forward. I think he's safe. LJ Collier, it seems like nobody wants him. Nobody wants to trade for him, but then again, he does also have that positional versatility along the defensive line, right? And so I think that, again, while he's not a lock, I definitely feel like he should get one more shot, especially in a new scheme with the more, downhill type of attack on defense. I think we should give him a shot. And so I don't think, while he is on a roster bubble, I think ultimately he does make it because of his positional versatility. Marquis Goodwin, while I do love the speed, and that's essentially what he brings to the table, speed, and a whole lot of speed, I think he's actually the least likely of these guys to make the roster, just because Seattle has a whole bunch of young guys at receiver. I mean, we still yet to really see what Dwayne Eskridge can do in the National Football League. Freddie Swain has been, very steady as that wide receiver 3 in the last couple of years, and so obviously he is locked in, right? Bo Melton, I thought that during training camp he made some spectacular plays. I think that he has already outplayed his draft slot, right? And so I think, you look at a guy like a Derek Young, who Seattle also drafted in the 7th round. There are a whole bunch of young guys. Kate Johnson, I know he had that muff punt, against the Bears, but I think that he still has talent. And so I think that out of all these guys, Marquis Goodwin's probably going to have the hardest shot of making the final roster. But if he does make the roster, I wouldn't be surprised, just because, he's been in the league. He's definitely done his thing in the league. But out of these guys, I think that he's probably the least likely to make the final roster. And this isn't a question here, what I'm about to bring up, but I just thought it was a funny comment. And this is via tshot_420 on Instagram. They said, quote unquote, "Can't panic when you have already accepted." And so I'm not exactly sure what they've accepted, but I definitely know where they're getting at. I just thought it was an interesting quote I wanted to share with you guys. If you weren't able to catch it on Instagram, which, by the way, if you guys aren't already, be sure to follow us on Instagram. Be sure to follow us on Twitter, and be sure to also add me on Snapchat for more updates. I know we're not always going to be on YouTube, but to keep up to date with everything, not just in the sports world, but in Steezy's world, at Steezy A. Smith, Instagram, Twitter. And if you ever want to hop on a live show, send us a DM. Again, just because I'm on that subject of talking about sliding in my DMs, any fantasy footballers out there? I know that this is a Seahawks episode. I'm not going to dive too much into this, but any fantasy football players out there? I got a couple of leagues on the Sleeper app. If any of you guys are interested, be sure to just send me a DM, Instagram, Twitter, send me a message on Snapchat, Facebook. If you got me on Facebook, send me a message. I got a couple of spots open. I'd love to get some of you guys in some of those fancy leagues. I have a couple of memorabilia leagues. I have a couple of best ball leagues, dynasty leagues, keeper leagues, redraft leagues, you name it. There's a lot going on there. So if you guys are interested, definitely be sure to, even if you don't send me a message or a DM, just let me know in the comments below. I try to read all these comments. So definitely go ahead and do that, y'all. I'm going to have the next question on the board, but I will turn back to some of you guys out there in the audience. Let me see. Okay, so we got Joe B. We are going for the best draft pick so we can pick our future quarterback in the next draft. Going with the locker, especially Gino, will help to achieve this. Of course. Right? And so, again, I can't, what's the word? I can't emphasize this enough. Does it actually matter who starts at quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks? No, because at the end of the day, and while the Seahawks will never publicly admit this, the goal is to kind of take a gap year. And metaphorically speaking, of course, this year, you kind of take that step back. And so that next year, when you're in a position to get a quarterback, you're able to take those next couple of steps forward because, again, you have the foundation of a good team, a young nucleus around said quarterback. So, Joe, I agree with you. East Coast Gridiron, I appreciate you guys. Yes, of course. Yes, sir, brother. Thanks for tuning in. Big Play Slay, appreciate it, bro. You the real MVP. Hey, you guys are the real MVPs for tuning in. So I really appreciate you guys. For real. Not Chief. Sadly, I think Gino's going to start since he already knows the playbook. See, not Chief, I get that. That's definitely a valid point. I just think that by this, and we should know this by now. What is Gino going to do that he hasn't shown us yet in the NFL? He's been in the league 10 plus years, and now he's been pretty much a career-long backup. I'm not saying that he shouldn't start for any teams. I'm not saying that he can't start for this team, but I just think that at this point, he's 30, 31 years old. I just don't know if there's really any potential untapped, right? And we've seen it in the preseason. And to his credit, or granted, he hasn't really had much run with the first teamers. He hasn't played a lot with the DK. He hasn't played a lot with the Tyler Lockett. But he has played with the first string offensive linemen. He has played with the coaches that he's going to be coached up with. And so while the weapons haven't been there, I think the play just has not been very inspiring. And so, yes, he knows the playbook. But what has that done for him in his preseason so far? So that's kind of where I stand there. I just think that with the Drew Lock, he has more potential. He has more intrigue. He has more in his bag. That's just me, though. Sajin and Collier are not safe right now. I wouldn't be surprised either way. Roto Sports Network, what it do? Go, yo, big bro, OG, man. It has been far too long. I'm pretty sure you guys know who this is, man. But we are talking about Guru's Film Room. Please be sure to follow him on Instagram, on Twitter. Subscribe to his YouTube right here at the World of Sports Network. But this is the Film Meister right here, man. Man, you've been dubbed, big bro. I haven't seen you on here in a while, but then again, who am I to talk? I've been away from the game for a while too. But I see you've been out there doing your thing, bro. You've been dropping those scheduled prediction episodes. You've been breaking down players, the player spotlights, and all that. I saw you talk about DJ Moore. You talked about Nick Bosa. You're predicting the schedule. You're having all these scheduled predictions for the teams like the Dolphins and the Chargers. But I've been seeing you getting back into that work, and so. For all y'all out there, if you're looking for a knowledgeable football mind, at the World of Sports Network right here, Guru's Film Room on Instagram and on TikTok. He's a very funny man. He's been on my live streams a couple of times now. So for those of you guys that have been keeping tabs and that watch all these streams, you know who he is. But again, please, World of Sports Network on YouTube, Instagram, all that. Show my OG some love, man. Come on. Yes, sir. Fantasy football. I'm down to do the fantasy thing. Okay, hey, not Chief. If you could actually send me a DM on Instagram, just because I might forget by the end of the stream. Send me a DM on Instagram. We'll get the ball rolling on that front. I just think it's more fitting for Drew to start week 1 because of the trade. More interesting game. Right. And I think that with the Geno Smith, he's more of a game manager. Like, there's just not a lot of upside there. And so if you're going to have a quarterback that's limited, that's not going to push the ball down the field, and opposing teams know who he is, I just don't really see Seattle having any shot whatsoever. Now, if you have a Drew Lock at quarterback against the Denver Broncos in week 1, I think you have more of a shot to win a football game just because he's able to do more, just because he has a bigger arm. He can't push the ball down the field. He's a little bit more unpredictable. There's still some mystique. There's still some intrigue, regarding or revolving around his game. His upside, I think, as a rusher, I think athletically, he has a little bit of upside there. And so I think he has the ability and the capabilities to kind of dice you up in a variety of ways. Now, if he's able to stay on top of things as far as, keeping those turnovers down, and if he's able to protect the football and not turn the ball over, and somebody brought it up. It was Coach Gridiron, my bad. He talked about how Drew Lock is going to go out there and surprise everybody. So watch out, y'all. Yes, sir. Appreciate your love, bro. Hey, always, big bro. Hey, we got to hop back on it. We got to hop back on it. Man, I can't talk right now. We gotta hop on again, bro. It's been too long. Whether me hopping in your show, you hopping back on my show, we gotta set it up again, big bro. So hey, let me know. You got my number. But let's move on to the next question here that we have gotten on social media. And it's, how do you think DK Metcalf is going to do this season? This is via @Zaid5482 on Instagram. I think DK Metcalf is going to be in for. He might be in for a tough season, y'all. I'm not sure if he's going to have 1,000 yards this year just because of the quarterback situation. But if Drew Lock ends up being better than advertised, and if Seattle doesn't end up winning a whole lot of games, he might have an opportunity to kind of put up, and I hate calling this, but garbage stats, garbage numbers, just because if the team is going to be trailing a lot, I mean, he's going to have a bunch of opportunities to kind of put up numbers. And so I think that you kind of take that into account. Maybe he eclipses 1,000 yards, but I'm not exactly sure. I'm not exactly sure. So let's just say he falls short of 1,000 yards, but if Drew Lock is better than advertised, he's going to eclipse 1,000 yards. I think it's that simple. I think from what we saw last year when Russell Wilson was out, Geno Smith did feed him the ball. he did look in his direction. And so if you guys are asking from like a fantasy football perspective, I think I'd be a little iffy on him just because I try to stray away from players that play on bad teams. But I think that he'll still have a solid year. I mean, 900 plus yards, 800 plus yards. I think you can pretty much book that. Anywhere from 7 to 10 touchdowns. He is that good, and whoever starts at quarterback, he's going to help to make them look a little bit better than they actually are. So I wouldn't expect 1,000 yards, but I would expect somewhere in the neighborhood. And obviously, this could change, right? Because we have yet to see Drew Locke in that preseason game. Hopefully, he does start this weekend against the Cowboys. But I think a DK Metcalf right now, I'd say anyone along the lines of 800, 900 yards, 7 to 8 touchdowns. If Drew Locke is better than advertised, I'd expect 1,000 yards and at least 10 touchdowns. Couple of comments here. Just sent you a DM on Instagram, but all right, I'll take note of that. Thank you. DK is going to do all right. Same thing with Locke. If Drew can carry, I think they both will actually reach 1,000. I don't know about that. I think Drew Locke would definitely have to perform at a near Pro Bowl level if this team's going to have 2 1,000-yard receiving guys, but I'm not going to put that out of the realm of possibility. I mean, we're talking about one of the best wide receiver duos, if not the best wide receiver duo in the NFL. So I'm not going to put it past them. But we're going to move on to the next question. And this is via @Alec Payton on Instagram. Shout out to my guy, Alec Payton. Hope you tuned in, bro. But he's asking, will the Cowboys preseason matchup determine if Drew Locke starts over Geno in week 1? Easy answer, yes. And I think with the way that Geno Smith has kind of struggled in the preseason so far, albeit with backups and second teamers and second stringers and whatnot, I think that everybody kind of wants to see what Drew Locke can bring to the table. And again, this was against second teamers and second stringers, but what he did against the Steelers, how he almost led the Seahawks to a comeback victory over the Steelers, I thought that was very encouraging. That was definitely, I feel like, I guess, a win on his end, especially as it pertains to this quarterback battle. Lately, he has been taking more of the first team reps in training camp. And so, yes, and again, I've talked about this ad nauseum. His game caters to the strengths of our pass catchers. And that's going to be DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. Those guys excel in the deep passing game. While he's not the most accurate at it, Drew Locke has a lot stronger of an arm than Geno Smith. There's just so much more upside baked into that. And with the Geno Smith, there just isn't a whole lot of upside there. There really isn't. Even if he has the advantage or the knowledge of the playbook beforehand, that just really hasn't helped him in the way that a lot of others would have expected it. And so I think that, yes, Alec Payton, to answer your question, bro, that matchup against the Cowboys this week will most definitely determine if Drew Locke starts over Geno Smith. If he has a better game than Geno, and if Geno flops in this one, that job is Drew Locke's to lose. No doubt. Okay, and then this is via Zay for President 1 on Twitter. Shout out to Zay. I hope you're tuned in, bro. But they're asking, how do you feel about Kobe Bryant, Tariq Woolen? Do you think any of them will get one of the starting jobs at cornerback? I think right now the more likely rookie to start at cornerback is Kobe Bryant, just because he came into the NFL ready-made. He spent all 4 years, in college. He was the Jim Thorpe Award winner, which meant that he was the nation's best DB in all of college football last year, even though he was getting picked on because teams just weren't throwing on Sauce Gardner's side. So who were they throwing at Kobe Bryant? And he excelled. And so I think that right now, I mean, his floor, he might not have the higher ceiling, but right now, going into year 1, he has the higher floor. Like I talked about, he's just always there. He just always seems to be in the right spot at the right time. Excuse me. And when we look at some of that college production, and if I'm not mistaken, he played 50 games and he had 45 pass breakups. And so obviously he has a nose for the ball. He plays like a veteran. He has the IQ. And so I think between those two, Kobe Bryant is the likeliest one to start as a rookie. But with the Tariq Woolen, I mean, if we're playing a long game, Tariq Woolen, I think, man, teams have already been salivating, or at least the Seahawks have already salivated over the tools and athleticism that he brings to the table. I mean, this guy's 6'4". He's run one of the fastest 40-yard dashes of all time, 4.26 40, and he's 6'4", 200+ pounds. I mean, nobody that tall, that big should be running that fast. And he's not just all athletic ability and build and physical gifts. I mean, we've seen him, I don't want to say shut down, but we've seen him hold his own against DK Metcalf. We've seen him hold his own in training camp and in the preseason. I thought he performed spectacularly against the Bears. He was very much shut down like in that game. And so I think in the long run, I'd rather have a Tariq Woolen. I think there's a better bet, or it's a better bet to place on a Tariq Woolen if you're looking at a guy that's going to have more long-term success. But as far as immediate success and as far as being able to start in year one, Kobe Bryant. Go back to the comments here. So we got Sijin been checking into other teams outside the NFC West, and there's talk of them wanting Locke for a 2 and a 4. Wow. Right now, I think Seattle should should refrain, because if you do that, what kind of a message does that send? Not only to the rest of the team, but to the fan base. I mean, Seattle just blatantly told the fan base and everybody else that this is a reload, not a rebuild. And so you could live with, Bobby Wagner being released, especially after all this time. You could live with Russell Wilson being traded, especially after all this time to kind of, process things. That being said, you start to trade away other veterans like Tyler Lockett after you just re-signed or gave DK Metcalf an extension. You gave Quandre Diggs an extension. You just gave Jamal Adams an extension last year. I mean, you're not paying a lot of guys, but to me, that paints a clear picture. This team is rebuilding, but this team is reloading, not rebuilding. And so if you were to get a quarterback next year, and like I talked about, you already have an interesting nucleus, an interesting team to surround that quarterback. And so I'm not willing to trade Tyler Lockett for a 2 and a 4. Maybe if by the end of the year or closer to the trade deadline, Seattle is, at 1 or 2 wins, and then maybe 6 or 7 losses, then maybe you start to entertain, things of that nature, just because, as we've seen in the last couple of years, we've seen rookie wide receivers come in and just explode. And so maybe Seattle would want to surround next year's franchise quarterback with other rookie receivers. But I think right now, this team is reloading, not rebuilding. You understand that you're going to have one bad year, but once you hopefully bring in a quarterback next year, whether that's via the trade or via the draft, or whether that's via trade, who knows? Maybe you sign a guy in free agency. You want to be able to surround them with weapons. And Tyler Lockett is absolutely a weapon. I'd keep him around for at least one more year. Now, if he was to demand a trade, that'd be different. But I don't think that he's going to get to that point. I think he understands what this upcoming year is going to be in Seattle. My guy Justin is asking, if you think it's bleak for us or we're going to take a step back this year, do you see any veterans getting traded? I'd love to see Locke go if we can get some value. So I just talked about that. I think right now, this team is reloading. It's not rebuilding. And so I think once you get a quarterback next year, and I think that's inevitable, you're going to get a quarterback next year, especially because Seattle didn't draft a quarterback in this year's draft. You didn't draft at all. And so although that could be a sign of confidence in a Drew Lock, it just also means that you weren't exactly enamored with this quarterback class, and that you probably fell in love, or you probably like somebody else in next year's draft, or you probably have other plans at quarterback. And so I'm not going to be looking to blow this team apart. I think worst case scenario is close to the trade deadline. Seattle's sitting at 1 or 2 wins, and then it's like, okay, we'll entertain, a fire sale. But right now, I think that's sending the wrong message. And so even if you were to get adequate value for a Tyler Lockett or some of the other veterans on this roster, I mean, I just don't think it'd make a lot of sense, especially because you did give DK an extension, especially because you did give Quandre Diggs an extension. Seattle still wants to win, and there are pieces to help make that happen as long as you do get a quarterback. And I think that they get a quarterback as early as next year. So right now, I would hold off on trading any veterans. I think that if there were going to be any trades, it would have happened early in the offseason. But has it happened yet? I don't see it happening. I hope that answered your question, though, Justin. That's terrible value for a Pro Bowl receiver. I wouldn't want a first in the player. Okay. Alan Armitage, long time no see, family. Yes, sir. Yes, sir, man. Hey, thanks for tuning in, Alan. I really appreciate you. Go Hawks. Go Hawks. I get that. Just saying what's going around. Okay. Great assessment on Kobe and Tariq. Spot on. Which unit will have more success, the O or the D? Man, this is tough, OG. I think it really just it depends on what Drew Lock could do at quarterback, right? I think right now, because there is that uncertainty at quarterback, I think the defense is going to have a lot more success. You look at, again, there's foundational pieces at every level. The defensive line, I think, is going to be a lot better than people realize. You have a lot of depth there. You have a lot of guys that could put up production. You have a lot of guys that are talented at the linebacker spots. I mean, you have a Jordan Brooks who's probably going to carry the unit. I'm not exactly sure what we're going to get out of a Cody Barton. I think Seattle could use additional depth at linebacker behind those two. But it seems like Seattle's content to go into the season with those guys over there. But the secondary, I mean, we already talked about it. I think they have a top 3 safety duo in football with the Quandre Diggs and Jamal Adams. There's a lot of potential in the cornerback room. Right now, I have more faith in the defense. As crazy as that might sound, I have more faith in the defense, to answer your question. My guy Seahawks Martin in the building, man. What's going on, little bro? It's been far too long, man. I definitely need to have you on one of these shows in the near future. But he's saying, yo, please, everybody, show my guy some love at Seahawks Martin on YouTube. I don't know if he's still putting out content, but be sure to show him some love at Seahawks Martin on YouTube. We got Tagman Clan Killer 187 saying, I need Trey Brown to be healthy. Heck, don't we all? David Moore in the building. What do you think about center? I'm a little worried about Blythe, and I'm outright scared of the backups. Look, Austin Blythe, I know it's kind of been a while since he's been a starter in the league. Last year, he was what's the word? He was he was a starting center, but then he actually lost his job. And I'm blanking on his name, but what was that rookie center for the Chiefs? Last year he had just an Creed Humphreys. How did I forget? But he did back him up. But a year before that, and I don't know how much stock you guys put into Pro Football Focus, but he was ranked as the 9th best center in football by Pro Football Focus just a couple of years ago. And so he does also have experience playing under Shane Waldron. I know that he hasn't been, his absolute best throughout the course of this preseason. But, I think Austin Blythe should be the guy. Now, there are other options. I think Dakota Shepley is also he's held his own throughout the course of training camp. And I think ultimately Austin Blythe takes the job. I mean, he's the veteran. He has experience playing under Shane Waldron. So I think that while he might just be a short-term option, I think he's our best option at center. But let me actually take a peek at the depth chart real quick. Give me a second. I also think that with the Kyle Fuller, I mean, I don't think that he'd be the worst option. Now, he hasn't shown a lot in the past, but I definitely think that he's shown and made some strides. He's improved just a little bit. And so I wouldn't be as terrified at the center position just because I think that elsewhere on the offensive line, Seattle's pretty much set. So, Austin Blythe is going to be my guy. They're at center. Let's see here. My guy Daniel Dovin, man. What's up, bro? It's been a long time, brother. What he's saying, Steezy, I agree. It's not time to panic, but we have looked terrible so far. How is D-Lou? So D-Lou, last I checked, I think the X-rays actually came back negative. And so they're not expecting Damian Lewis to miss a whole bunch of time. I think right now he should be on track to play come week 1, but I think he's being listed as day-to-day. And so it's nothing super scary, nothing super serious. But I do hope that he is ready to come back in time for week 1. And just to kind of address what you talked about, I know that was kind of the headline in the thumbnail. He talked about how I agree it's not time to panic and why Seahawks fans shouldn't panic. Main reason why I'm saying that Seahawks fans shouldn't panic is because we expected this. Seattle was supposed to be bad this year, and like we talked about earlier, I'm just going to put this quote up there, but can't panic when you have already accepted. And so obviously you can have your own interpretation. But mine is that I already knew that Seattle was going to struggle this year, not to the tune of the number 1 overall pick in next year's draft, but they were going to be a bottom 10 team in the league. And that was expected, especially after you trade a Russell Wilson. I mean, what did you expect? And so when you accept that this team is not going to be nearly as good, when you accept that this team just needs to take a step backward to move forward again, and by that I mean acquiring a high enough draft pick to be able to get a quarterback in next year's draft, then you don't panic. Look, y'all, that's where I stand on that. Let me know if I'm tripping. I just think that we all saw this coming. We all should have expected this to happen. So, yeah, kind of where I stand on that. Seahawks Martin is asking, what do you love most about Abe Lucas's skills? Obviously, we all know what he's capable of as a pass protector, right? He played in a very pass-happy offense in college, but that doesn't mean that he can't run block. I think that with what we've seen so far, He's just been an absolute mauler in a run game. He's been over here pancaking guys. He's been over here just playing just nasty football. I'm absolutely in love with what I'm seeing so far from Abe Lucas. We already know that he's an above average pass protector. Now he could show up. If he could shore up his abilities as a run blocker, he has the potential to be the best right tackle in football. Plain and simple. I think that's really how high his ceiling is, and his determination. I mean, he's such a friendly guy. I had a chance to kind of chop it up with him, throughout training camp. I did show up a couple of times, and he's such a great guy, y'all. And actually, you guys obviously are familiar with Squabo Says, my brother from another mother, but he went to school with an Abe Lucas, and he's actually had the opportunity to chop it up with him a couple of times, and he just talked about how he's one of the nicest guys he's ever met. Despite standing 6'4", 310 plus pounds, I mean, he's a gentle giant, if you will. Now, I don't mean that as a diss, and so if you're listening to Abe, I mean, that's most definitely not a diss. I think it's a compliment. But yeah, I just love his versatility. I love the dog in him. I love how determined. I love how hungry he is. I love how focused he is. I think he's gonna be a great right tackle in the National Football League sooner rather than later. Tackman Clan Killer. I'm still upset that they drafted Eskridge over Humphrey. Yeah, bro. I mean, that's obviously something that we'll probably never get over, especially with each passing year. Creed Humphrey has just been phenomenal, and some people actually had him as the best center in football last year. Obviously, that's just gonna make it a lot worse for us, but it is what it is, right? Now to take this podcast. Yo, what's going on, my brother Beto? For those of you guys, I know we're not going to have a lot of 49er fans in here, but show my good friend some love, y'all. If you guys can follow him, if you guys can subscribe to his channel, his page on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube at the 96ers Podcast, I'd greatly appreciate it. We are also on an NFC West roundtable that hopefully we're going to start up real soon. We will be going live with representatives from the Cardinals, from the Rams. He's representing the Niners, and I'm representing the Seahawks for NFC West All Access. So if you guys could please subscribe to that channel on YouTube. Once again, NFC West All Access. We will be covering all NFC West teams. Damn, I can't talk right now. We will be covering all NFC West teams throughout the course of the season. We are planning on going live once a week to kind of break things down from each of the teams, or from each of the panelist perspectives of the respective teams throughout the course of the season. So once again, at the NFC West All Access channel on YouTube, please be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't ever miss a live or a video. Tackman says Kobe gonna turn up as the season goes. Oh, no doubt. No doubt. 100%. 100%. He said we still haven't replaced Max Unger since the trade, which is sad. I mean, we traded him back in 2013, 2014. So it's been almost a decade since we traded Max Unger, and here we are still struggling at center. Do you like Shane Waldron's scheme over Shoddy? It's hard to say. I think that, last year with Russ being injured, Shane Waldron kind of had to condense that playbook a little bit. You know what I mean? Even when Russ came back, you had a Russ that wasn't 100%. And when Russ was out, you had to put in a Geno Smith last minute, right? And you prepared an offense for Russell Wilson, not Geno Smith. And even when Russell Wilson came back, you prepared an offense for Russell Wilson that was hopefully 100%, not 50% or 60%. So I think right now it's kind of hard to see where Shane Waldron stands as far as scheme goes, just because even last year he never really had a healthy running back until the last 5 weeks of the season. But if we look at what Seattle was able to do in the last 5 to 6 weeks of the season, the offense looked far more competent. Russell Wilson obviously was healthy, and so that played a part. Rashad Penny was healthy. It's hard to tell, bro. I'm sorry. I can't really answer that question right now. I just need to see more work from Shane Waldron. I think that once, the season rolls around, we've seen a couple of games, I could probably answer that question a little bit better than I can now, but it's hard to say. It's hard to say. With you on that. Joseph Fessalbon, just want to say, hey, thanks, Joseph, for tuning in. How do you think the D-line will do? Look, I was just heaping my praises on them just earlier. I think that our defensive line, or the Seahawks defensive line, is probably going to be Seattle's best position group. And I'm talking both offense and defense. That defensive line is going to be Seattle's best position group come this regular season. I think that not only is there a lot of depth, there's proven talent. There's a lot of bodies that you can rotate in and out. And I think that the defensive line is going to surprise a lot of people. Can we cut Justin Coleman? What? I don't know about that. Keep Lewis at his natural position. I agree. And then Dovin, thank you, bro. Way to go with the channel. Thank you, brother. I know, like I talked about this at the top of the show, bro, but I've been sloughing. I mean, I haven't uploaded, and I'm not even talking about shorts, but I haven't uploaded a full length episode on YouTube since July, I think 3rd, and then I haven't had a live stream since May 4th, and so I've just I needed that break. But now that I'm back in the game, I don't plan on stopping anytime soon. So you guys can expect a lot more content, whether those are shorts, whether those are live streams, whether they're just regular episodes. We're gonna go back to doing what we do. And so to kind of keep up to date and to stay on top of things, be sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter once again at DZA Smith for all announcements. Tackman, Denver O-line ain't great either. It's not. And we've talked about this before, but I think part of the reason why Russ took all those sacks was because he was running into sacks and he was holding on to the ball, for forever, it seemed like. And I know that he was able to produce a lot of magic because we've seen so many plays, we've seen so many, plays down the field in which he extended the play and he just made magic. He just made miracles happen. Yes, but the price of doing business like that is you're gonna have to take some sacks and you're gonna take a lot of punishment. And so I think that no matter what offensive line is out there protecting him, he's bound to take sacks. I think as far as talent goes, Denver might have the slight edge, but as far as cohesion of a unit, actually no, I can't even say that because Seattle has all these incoming guys. It's not great, but I think it's better than Seattle's. I will say that. Sajin, good to see you back, brother, man. Keep doing what you do. Thank you, brother. I appreciate you, Sajin. God bless you. Charles Cross going to feel that growing pain. Oh, yeah. No doubt. I mean, he's a rookie. We saw him excel against the Steelers, but then against the Bears, what was it, 5 penalties, 1 holding, 4 false starts. Excuse me. I think that with the Charles Cross, and I'm not attributing all of this to the quarterback battle, but I remember hearing just recently that, obviously, and we know this, but the cadence between a Drew Locke and a Geno Smith, these guys have been splitting reps as of late in training camp. I know that Drew Locke was out because of COVID. He's back now, and I hope he's, feeling 100% better. But those guys have different snap counts. Those guys have different cadences. And so if those guys have been kind of, been switching back and forth during training camp, during practice, then the offensive linemen are going to get confused from time to time. And I think against the Bears, that just so happens to be a Charles Cross. And so, yes, there's going to be growing pains, but I don't think that's going to stop him from being the best offensive lineman from this class. I definitely and I truly believe that come the end of the season, he's going to be the best offensive lineman in his class, regardless of position, out of the guards, out of the centers, out of all the tackles. I think eventually by the end of the season, he will be that guy. It's better that he goes through these growing pains now than the regular season because that's when it's actually going to cost us. But now that, or because it is the preseason, we got to let him take that. We got to let him handle that. That's only going to make him better moving forward. Too many flags. This better be Gabe Jackson's last year unless he performs well. He was also getting a little bit older. And so, his play has kind of declined in the last couple of years. But again, he was one of the guys I had a chance to chop it up with during training camp. And he's looking like he's in great spirits. And I think he's ready to have a career year. So we'll definitely see where that goes. Go to Seahawk. Yo, what up, Colin? Man, I feel like it's been so long since I've connected with some of you guys. Colin? Hey, I know that Colin's actually one of the guys that have, asked to participate in one of the fantasy leagues that I was talking about earlier. He will be partaking in a best ball league. So again, if any of you guys out there are interested in playing any of my fantasy football leagues, be sure to send me a DM and let me know. He will be one of the competitors, and he's actually one of the very best fantasy football young minds that I know. So be sure to watch out for Colin. He's a real smart brother. Real smart brother. Tyler, can you get me the song? Yep. I'm going to have to wait till after the stream, but I can't do that right now. But I'll get back to you after the stream. 96 podcast. Seahawks fans, which quarterback in next year's draft do you guys look forward to in drafting? Okay. He didn't ask me, so I'm not going to answer that question. But make sure y'all in the comments out there, be sure to reply to my guy at the 96 podcast. I think that's a good question. Great question. Quentin Jefferson keeps coming back. Hey, he loves Seattle. I mean, he still has a house in Seattle. Even after he left Seattle, he still managed to have a house here in Seattle. And so Hey, man, what is it not to like? I like Jalen Hall, quarterback from BYU. Okay. Also likes KJ Jefferson, Tanner from Stanford. Not cheap likes CJ Stroud or Bryce Young. Stroud, okay, Stroud has been wanting to be a Seahawk. Can the Ohio State quarterback curse ever stop? If it is going to stop with somebody, CJ Stroud. Or even a Justin Fields with the Bears. I like Justin Fields in this game, so we'll see where that goes. That kid is special, no doubt. All right, while you guys chop it up over there in the comments, I did just want to go for a maximum of 1 hour and 30 minutes today, and we are creeping up to that mark. It was about 20 minutes. And so I'm going to go back to some of the questions that we have on here. Let me see. Okay. And this is via jet_GH on Twitter. One of my favorite Seahawks Twitter people. So if you guys use Twitter, be sure to not only follow me at Steezy A Smith, SteezyASmith, but please be sure to follow jet_GH. He's a very passionate Seahawks fan, and he definitely knows what he's talking about. So be sure to follow him on Twitter. But his question: how would you feel about Jake Curhan moving a guard? Now, before I answer this question, I do have to handle something real fast. So hold on, y'all. I'll be right back. So sorry for the inconvenience. Man, sorry about that, y'all. But just to kind of answer the question, how would you feel about Jake Curhan moving a guard? I think me personally, I don't think we need to do that, because if we're gonna move him to guard, I wouldn't just want that to be just because he's not doing enough at right tackle. I mean, he's been at right tackle. I know that he has been practicing at guard throughout, parts of training camp and the preseason and whatnot. But look, unless Damian Lewis is set to miss a lot of time, unless Gabe Jackson just falls off a cliff, I don't think he start at any of the guard spots. Now, if we were to have him as that flexible offensive lineman that can kind of move all over the line, that's fine with me. But to permanently move him to guard and to keep him exclusively at guard when he's just going to be a depth option or a depth piece, I don't think it's really necessary to do that. And you also talked about how on Twitter you're worried about if he's fast enough, on those pulls. Is he able to pull fast enough? You think he's too slow? And so that is definitely a legitimate concern. But I think at right tackle, I mean, between all the guys that are competing for that spot, I think eventually Abe Lucas, and I know I've changed my mind, but Abe Lucas he's shown far too much to not be the guy at right tackle. But he is the best run blocking guy, and I'm talking about Jake Curhan at right tackle. And so if Seattle, if they end up wanting to make Abe Lucas wait, then you keep Jake Curhan. Maybe he's your starter at right tackle. We'll see. But for me, I'd keep him where he is just because he is going to be more of a depth piece. And without having to designate him strictly as a guard, I just feel like you take away from what he'd be able to do. So I'd keep him where he is now. Let me see. Now you're speaking my language. Okay, Niner Sickness podcast question. I'm curious, why now get O lineman now that Russell Wilson is gone? I just think that, and Betha, we've actually talked about this before, but Seattle just was never really in position to draft as high as they were able to this past season when they traded away Russell Wilson and got, in return, Actually, obviously, one of the pieces that they got was the 9th overall pick. Seattle never picked that high when Russell Wilson was in town. And so I just don't think that, it's like, oh, Russell Wilson's gone now. Let's start to get offensive linemen. No, Seattle just was never in that position before. Seattle was investing in offensive linemen before, but they just weren't having a lot of luck in doing so. Seattle, they kind of flopped with the and I know this predates Russell Wilson, but James Carpenter, who Seattle took in the first round back in 2011, 25th overall out of Alabama, he never really panned out. You look at who are some of the other guys. I'm blanking. How am I blanking on all these names right now? Who's that right tackle from Texas A&M? What's his name? I'm blanking. And he went to the Bears. Can you guys remind me, for those of you guys that are still active in the chat, the right tackle, we drafted him. No, not Russell Okung. Man, how am I blanking on his name? He went to the Jermaine Orfetti. There you go. There you go, Colin. Thank you. Blanking on his name. Jermaine Orfetti, Seattle drafted him. What was it? 26th overall out of Texas A&M back in the 2016 draft. He didn't pan out, and there were other guys that didn't pan out. And so I don't think, again, I'm gonna say this again. I don't think Russell Wilson left, and the Seahawks were just like, oh yeah, now let's just get offensive linemen. I think it's kind of just how the dominoes have fell. And yeah, I hope that answers your question, Beto. But let me see. You guys having any of this? That's a very good point, guys. We're always picking. Thank you for answering my question, brother. Of course, brother. Of course. All right, and just a couple of players that I wanted to highlight throughout the course of the preseason. I know he struggled immensely against the Bears in the last preseason game, especially with penalties and whatnot. But according to Pro Football Focus, and 53 pass blocking snaps, Charles Cross has allowed 0 pressures. And I know a majority of that production has been against backup, second and third stringers and whatnot, but he has also spent some time, blocking against NFL caliber starters. And so now maybe not all 53 pass blocking snaps were against starters, but he has had, stiff competition, if only minimal. And so to see 0 pressures, I think that's most definitely something to highlight, most definitely a guy that we want to talk about, and I'm pretty sure you guys feel the same. But another player I wanted to spotlight, Abe Lucas. I mean, 1 pressure allowed in 0 pass blocking snaps, according to Pro Football Focus. Not only that, I think just the physicality and the desire that he's shown, the will to succeed, the hunger. He just over there just out muscling, just out dominating guys physically. And I think that with an Abe Lucas, that was some of the concerns coming out of college. Like, is this guy going to be physical enough? Is this guy going to want to run block? I think those questions have so far been answered, here in Seattle. So definitely a guy that I want to spotlight, Abe Lucas, who I think has a pretty strong grip on the starting right tackle job in Seattle. Let me know if you guys think otherwise. We've talked about him, but Drew Locke, I mean, he's only really played 1 preseason game, but 11 for 15, 73.3 completion percentage, 102 passing yards, and 2 touchdowns for a quarterback rating of 131.1. Look, Seattle's offense just completely stalled when Geno Smith was in the game, and as soon as Drew Locke came in, which is out there picking apart the defense and led Seattle on multiple scoring drives, we saw a whole lot of positive things, albeit against backups. I can't stop saying that, but I think with the Drew Locke, he should be the guy. He should be the guy, because either way, Seattle's going to be bad this year, and so why not roll with the guy that has the most upside? I think that's Drew Locke. Another player that I wanted to spotlight, DJ Dallas. And so far, he's been very impressive. I mean, 20 total touches, 157 scrimmage yards, and a touchdown. I think that him and Travis Homer, they both have definitely showed Seattle why. They both deserve to spend time on the field as a third down running back. And so if Rashad Penny, if he stays healthy, if Ken Walker, if he's able to stay healthy, I know that he is recovering from that surgery that he just had. A lot of reports were saying that it was a hernia surgery. Now, I'm not exactly sure if that was what it was, but Seattle has options at running back. I mean, DJ Dallas and Travis Homer, I know these guys have kind of been mainstays in the last couple of years, but these guys have shown a lot of improvement. They've shown a lot of dog, and I definitely want to give them some credit. So DJ Dallas, the guy that I wanted to highlight. And speaking of Seattle running backs, Travis Homer, 12 total touches for 137 scrimmage yards. And as you guys saw against the Bears, I mean, he had that one just beast mode-esque run where you're just running through would-be tacklers, just showing off that physicality, that determination, that want to. So Travis Homer, you earned a spot on the preseason player spotlight. Another guy, moving on to defense, we got edge / linebacker Boye Mafe. So far in 2 preseason games, he has 8 total tackles. He has 2 sacks, 2 tackles for a loss, and a forced fumble. I don't know if World of Sports Network OG / Guru's film him. I don't know if you still tune in, my brother, but he was just absolutely raving about Boye Mafe before the start of the season. And so far, I think Boye Mafe has delivered. I mean, I think he's shown the ability to be a top-tier pass rusher for a team that is able to get after the quarterback. And Seattle for so long now has needed that guy. I feel like since Frank Clark was traded to the Chiefs, Seattle has been looking for that guy that could deliver as far as getting after the quarterback and whatnot. And so with the Boye Mafe, I mean, he didn't have any sacks against the Bears in week 2, but I think his future is very promising. And I think that if he's able to add a couple of counter moves, I think that if he's able to clean up his hand usage, we could see another star before our very eyes here in Seattle at the pass rusher spot in a Boye Mafe. Now, before I move on to the next topic, I will address some of you guys in the comments. Let's see here. LJ Collier was a WTF pick. I can't argue there. Can't argue with her there. James Carpenter gave me nightmares. Jordan Hill is a dog at Penn State. How's Woolen been doing? Hey, Woolen's been doing well. Like I talked about, this is a guy that I keep in touch with, and I am hoping to have him on the show for a live interview very, very soon, hopefully before the regular season kicks off. So you guys will expect him, or you guys should expect him on the show. And so hopefully he could just tell y'all himself. I mean, we'll see what happens there. But let me know if you guys think that should be a live stream, or should that just be recorded? Let me know how you guys want it. Aaron Frost, guard out of Nevada, is my sneaky pick in 2023. Physical freak who likes to run linebackers over. Actually, I haven't heard of him. I haven't done any film study on him, and so I'm curious to see what you're talking about over the attack, man. I'm definitely going to take note. Aaron Frost, guard out of Nevada. Okay, bet. Been saying keep Dallas on. Oh, no doubt, especially with the injury history of a Rashad Penny, especially because Ken Walker isn't currently healthy. Yeah, you got to keep those guys for insurance. No doubt about that. Homer is valuable. DJ Dallas could go. Why do you say that? Live stream for sure. Live stream. Okay, so you guys want to see Tariq Woolen on a live stream. Is that what I'm hearing? And for those of you guys that haven't put in your input yet, please be sure to let me know. I need to know, should this be a live stream or should it be pre-recorded? And I'm referring to my interview with Tariq Woolen. Let me know what you guys want, live stream or pre-recorded. Drop your answers down below. Can you interview the future Seahawks head coach, Nancy Pelosi? Hey, y'all, I'm all for the people. So whatever you guys want, if you guys truly want me to interview Nancy Pelosi, we'll do it. We'll make it happen. Nachi, what do you think of DeJounte Murray going to my Atlanta Hawks, DZ? It's going to be scary. Hey, DeJounte Murray, that's Seattle's very own. So shout out Baby Boy. He obviously hails from here to 206. I love the move. I think that, and I know this is Seahawks related, so I'm going to keep it brief, but DeJounte Murray going to the Hawks, I think it solidifies their standing, their spot as a bona fide top 6, top 7 team in the NFL, in the NBA. I think that, not in the NBA, excuse me, in the Eastern Conference in the NBA. And so I think that with Baby Boy going there, you add another ball handler, another guy that could play off the ball. You bring in a guy that's an all-star. You bring in a guy that could kind of take some of that pressure off of Trae Young. I mean, with that comes, what was I going to say? You change the pecking order, right? Because John Collins was your number 2, but now I think that he's better suited as a number 3. You bring in a DeJounte Murray, he's your number 2. Trae Young can also play off the ball if need be. And I think DeJounte Murray, his versatility defensively, what he's able to do, what he's able to open up for them offensively, I think he's going to be a great player for him. And I can't wait to watch him. I can't wait to watch him play. And I'm not even going to lie, I'm not a Hawks fan, not Chief, you know that, but I definitely going to need me a DeJounte Murray jersey. Richard Wynn, live stream. Okay. And Tyler says Madden stream. Actually, I'm not going to lie, I haven't played Madden in a while, so I don't know if I'm going to be streaming that anytime soon. But Tech Man, Husky Boys stand up. And my brother Squabble ain't going to like that, but I'll tell you one thing, my brother Dylan Brewski will. But y'all, we are about a couple minutes away from wrapping this show up. So before we do that, I'm going to address some of you guys in the comments. But before I get to that, real quick, let's move on to some of these. One more player. Sorry, I totally forgot to spotlight this guy. Michael Dixon. I can't even refer to him as just this guy, but Michael Dixon. I mean, I know that DK hasn't been playing, Jamal hasn't been playing, Quandre hasn't been playing, Tyler Lockett hasn't really been playing. So has Michael Dixon been Seattle's best player this preseason? Or am I tripping? He's just been doing his thing, obviously, with the offense looking as inept, as inefficient as they have been. Michael Dixon has spent a lot of time on the field punting. I mean, so far in 2 preseason games, 15 punts for 713 yards. And then an average of 47.5, 3 punts inside the 20. Oh, man. If Michael Dixon, if any team's punter is going to be your team's best player, you're going to be in for a long season. But like I talked about at the top of the show, I honestly think that he's the best punter in football. Let me know if you think otherwise. Just one more guy that I wanted to highlight, though, by the way. Yo, Devin, thank you so much, my brother. Appreciate what you do, brother. Go Hawks. Devin, I appreciate you for always tuning in, for showing support, and for showing love. Can't stop thanking you, brother. Thank you so much. It's greatly appreciated. Okay, so you're also for a live stream. Heck yeah. Okay, you know what? All right. So when I chop it up with Tariq, I'm going to let him know, hey, the fans, the people, they want a live stream, not nothing pre-recorded. So I'll definitely try to get that set up for you guys. Now, Chief, interview that boy Drew Locke. And hopefully I got some people, because I do know a lot of people. I have some connects, and so I'm going to try to get to Drew Locke, but he's definitely a guy that I want on the show. I'm assuming that you guys would want a live stream if I was to get him on the show. Yeah. Just let me know. Let me know. Tyler, love you, but let me know when the next show is so I can join. Hey, it's all love over here, Tyler. No doubt. We're going to keep in touch. We're going to keep in touch. Interview. Hey, Tech Fan over here. Interview Future Sierra. Hey, just to kind of maybe throw some shots at Russ. If I could try to put that together, I will. Trade for Justin Tucker. Send Ravens a first and a second. Nah, Chief. Nah, Chief. Nah, Chief. That's not it, man. That's not it. I'm sorry, but I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Michael Dixon should be kicking field goals too. Hey, with the way that Jason Myers has been struggling, we might need him to. The city of Seattle might need him to. Sajin is saying live, doesn't matter if it's on a phone. Yeah, even a phone call conversation with the Drew Locke would suffice, right? Yeah, just even have him on the show would be dope. So, yeah, you know what? All right, I'll definitely take note of that, Sajin. No doubt. Yeah, for sure. Live stream, Tucker just signed a new deal. Right, and actually made him the highest paid kicker in the game. We don't know how long that's going to last, but I think Najee was just trolling. He was just trolling. Oh, just real quickly, one more thing that I wanted to address. And I know I put out a YouTube Shorts episode. If you hadn't had the chance to watch it, I did post that 3 weeks ago. It's regarding the Seahawks and whether or not they should trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. So real quick, before we do wrap up this show, I'm just kind of curious to hear you guys' thoughts, and we'll keep this brief. But should the Seahawks trade for Jimmy Garoppolo? While I'm waiting for some of your guys' answers, I'm just gonna say no. And like I talked about at the top of the show, I just don't think he elevates Seattle's ceiling high enough to really just make it well worth their time in trading for him. And do you really want to give a valuable draft capital for what probably amounts to a one-year rental? No. And especially if that draft capital is going to be a second-round pick. Now, I understand Seattle has multiple second-round picks. Seattle has multiple first-round picks. They do have a whole bunch of trade ammo, but I'm not trading a second-round pick for a Jimmy Garoppolo when he's not even going to ensure that Seattle makes the playoffs. So, again, it all goes back to the title. Does it really matter who starts at quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks? It does not matter whether it's Geno Smith, whether it's Drew Locke, whether it's Jimmy Garoppolo. Either way, Seattle isn't going to make the playoffs. With the Jimmy Garoppolo, you're only inching closer towards NFL purgatory, which means that you're not good enough to make the playoffs, but you're not bad enough to quote-unquote tank, right? And so, no, I think that the Seahawks should not trade for Jimmy Garoppolo. You kind of look at this year, and while they'll never admit this, you tank or you lose games this year, and you get your future where you get your future at quarterback next year. You're not going to be able to do that with Jimmy G. Hawks Nation, we need you. Bro, hey, Keith, brother, thank you for tuning in to the live stream, bro. I just want to say, bro, the NFC, while they might be top heavy, there's a lot of dark horses that I see. And I'm not going to give out official, record predictions, or I'm not going to say this team is going to have that seed, but 7 teams right from the NFC are going to make the playoffs. Here are the 7 teams that I feel like are going to be better than the Seahawks if they bring in a Jimmy Garoppolo, or with or without Jimmy Garoppolo. Obviously, the Rams, the Buccaneers, Packers. I think the Eagles win the division. The Cowboys still going to be a threat. The Cardinals, the Niners, the Saints. And so that's already 8 teams right there. And I haven't even gotten to the Seahawks. I think the Detroit Lions are also going to be sleepers. I think the Minnesota Vikings are also going to be sleepers. So with or without Jimmy G, Seattle Seahawks aren't going to be good enough either way to make the playoffs. And so don't give up valuable draft capital for a 1-year rental for a guy that's not going to take it to the playoffs. Don't do that. That's a bad business move. Just my 2 cents. Just my 2 cents. Okay. Seahawks fans, realistically, how many games do you guys actually win this year? I think for me, and I did say it, I was going to make an official prediction. I know that I am on record saying 7-10, but right now, I might pivot backwards just a little bit. I'm going to say 6-11. As of today, Monday, 8:32 p.m. Pacific time, August 22nd, 2022, Steve A. Smith official record prediction for the Seattle Seahawks. And again, I'm not married to my statements. My statements are always going to be fluid. And so with new facts comes new opinions. But right now, I'm going to say 6-11. Jimmy G too busy. I think AC going to slip. Okay, Rams will remain strong. I forgot about the Panthers. I think the Panthers could definitely be a potential sleeper in the NFC, especially if Baker Mayfield, if he balls out in a contract year, I could most definitely see that. The Commanders might sneak into. A lot of things would have to break right, but I think that they definitely have a lot of talent in place, and if Carson Wentz can bounce back, it's feasible. 6-11 or 7-10. Okay, 6-11. What I'm saying, take Jimmy G. Don't get a good quarterback next year. Laughing out loud. Okay, I'm being trolled. Bro even set the time. Hey, man, I had to. Like I said, man, I'm not married to my statements. So I know a lot of people out there, they like to kind of go back and point out different timestamps and whatnot. So I had to let it be known, y'all. But we are getting close to the end of the show. Atlanta won't be bad. Interesting. Jay in the Bay, what's good? Steezy, who's the favorite to win the NFC West this year? My God, man. Hey, here's another 49ers content creator. If you guys, well, a lot of you guys probably aren't 49er fans, but just for great football content. I mean, he doesn't just talk about the 49ers. He mainly talks about the Niners. He also talks about other teams across the NFL. But Jay in the Bay, please, man, show my fam some love. Be sure to subscribe to his channel. He's been grinding. He's been doing his thing. But yeah, Jay in the Bay. So to answer your question, though, bro, who's the favorite to win the NFC West this year? I think the answer is obvious. I mean, they got to be the reigning defending Super Bowl champions, the LA Rams. Not only are they the most talented, they just actually we'll probably stick with that. They're the most talented team in the division. They have a whole bunch of star power. I think that they have the best quarterback in the division. They have the best head coach in the division. They have the best offense in the division. They have the most playmakers in the division. They have the most experience in the division. I could go on, but I think the answer is obvious here. I don't really got to get too much into it, but it's the LA Rams. You need to go to a Seahawks game. You're right about that, Tyler. I got everyone make sure to hit that like button for your boy. He's a great content creator. He brings you nothing but the best. Hey, Beto, thank you so much, my brother. Please be sure to do the same for my brother at the 96 podcast. And again, don't forget at Jay in the Bay. But folks, you know what they say. Time flies when you're having fun. Actually, hold on real quick. Not Chief. I'm about to dip Steezy. It's 11:30 and I got to wake up at 6:40 for school. Thanks for making a lot today, bro. All love, man. All glory to God. Yes, sir. AGTG. All glory to God. Amen. You know what time it is, not Chief. Thank you so much for that message. All glory to God. Once again. But folks, you know what they say. Time flies when you're having fun. And so I know that there are probably a couple of things that we didn't get to address. But like I said, I'm going to be scheduling more live streams. I'm going to be posting more shorts. I'm going to be posting more content. We're back in the thick of things, yo. We back in the game. And so now that I've kind of had that break, now that I've had that time to relax, I'm coming back into this game like I never left. And so for all the support that you guys have been showing throughout all this time, even though I haven't been putting out any content in the last month and a half or so, I really appreciate you guys for sticking by me, for standing by me, and for what we do over here at Team Steezy. And so to the Team Steezy family, I couldn't thank you guys enough. For more content to keep up to date, not just in the sports world, but in the Steezy world, be sure to follow us on Instagram. Be sure to follow us on Twitter, on Snapchat as well, at Steezy A Smith. And if you guys want to tap into any fantasy football leagues, I know time is kind of winding down. The preseason is kind of winding down, but if you guys are interested in playing in any fantasy football leagues with me, I do use the Sleeper app. I use the ESPN app, and I have a couple of open spots left in some of these leagues. So please be sure to tune in. Be sure to tap in. And send me a DM. If you guys are interested in joining any of those leagues, I'd be happy to provide you with all the details and whatnot. But before I wrap this up, I just want to say, as always, all glory to God. Amen. Thank you so much to everybody out there that tuned in. Once again, this is your boy, Calvin Domingo, a.k.a. Steezy A. Smith. We will be checking out. And until next time again, y'all, Steezy out. Peace. Again, this video is going to be dedicated to Mr. Todd Nas. While that concludes this video, we have loads of other content. You don't have to stop watching there. Other content on our channel homepage, as well as our social media platforms. And again, don't forget to hit that subscribe button for us. Tell a friend to tell a friend. Nothing but love, and Steezy out.